I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Binger, roll call vote. Roll call, please.
Delaney.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Weinbrenner.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Powers. McKinney.
Here. Mr. Powers asked to be excused.
I'll make that motion.
To excuse.
There's a motion by Musgrave. Doesn't matter.
No.
Support?
Support.
Support by Delaney. Roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Next item is consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the village council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and support. Roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Council comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Council may extend this time up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after council discussion, prior to council vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public, we ask that they please state their name and address for the record. Tonight's agenda has no old business. New business, there are 5 items. The first is consideration of the action request to purchase a play structure. The second is, item 2 is special event, Halloween. Item 3 is special event, the Holly Regatta, Pirating for a Cause. We have a pirate here tonight to make a presentation. Item 4, special event, Dickens Parade and Tree Lighting. And item 5, special event, Dickens Festival. Anyone for public comment? Yes.
Lori Lacey, 818 East Maple. I was just wanting to ask a question. Am I right on understanding that there's going to be a question and answer get-together tomorrow morning at the coffee, in the Battle Alley Coffee from 8 until 10 for the information for the special assessment for the officers and the fire?
I don't know.
The short answer to that is yes. If council would like, in response to Ms. Lacey's question, Chief Nurse could give some detail about the Q&A, or the answer is yes.
Any objection to Chief Narsh making comments in response to the question? Chief Narsh.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, at Battle Alley Coffee from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. You can ask the chiefs anything you want. We'll jointly be there, along with hopefully some committee members from the Citizens Committee to support Holly Public Safety. So what we want to do is provide information about the importance, and any questions or answers or concerns, we'll be there. And we'll address everything, and we want to communicate the need, and we want to answer those questions, and we don't care what they are, what you've heard, what you think. Please come by and visit. The coffee's great, the company's going to be good, and hopefully the conversation will be even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Narsh. Public comment, yes, in the front row with the shorts on.
Jim Clark, 314 Hadley Street. For the last few years, I have periodically brought up the issue of a capital improvement plan and long-range planning for the village. About a year ago, I asked our planner in the midst of a planning commission meeting if that was required, and she said yes, it's state law. There should be significant public input and direct input from the planning commission. The word I got from administration at that time was that information is wrong. Last month, we were up in the Upper Peninsula. We chose to play golf at Michigan Tech's golf course. And who got paired with us but a supervisor from Rowe Engineering? I asked him the same question. He said, yes, state law requires a capital improvement plan. It requires input from the planning commission, and it requires significant public input. At our last planning commission meeting, I raised the issue, and Mr. Walker stood up and said, yes, you're right. Thank you. I have hope for the future if Holly has long-range plans that involve input from the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I played that golf course with the attorney from Michigan Tech, who happened to be my cousin.
9.5 and 9 are very different.
And I lost. Sherilyn.
I'm Sherilyn Everly, and I too live at 314 Hadley Street. And as we've been traveling around, I've been noticing, and everybody's getting projects done. Ontonagon has all new streets, new bridge, curb and gutter. You know, you go to all these towns and everything is looking better. I come home and I find out that my good friend Patty fell down on Maple Street this week, and she's broken her hand, she's broken her fingers, she's just a mess. And it caused us old timers to talk about when we used to have a sidewalk program where people who lived and wanted their sidewalks fixed in front of them, the village would come along at a certain time and say, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to pay 40%, and you'll pay 60%, and we'll put the bill on your water bill, and you can pay it over time, and we're going to have some nice new sidewalks. We haven't done that in 30 years. But, you know, we let people get hurt. And so, again, we're talking to this engineer. How do you get money out of the state? Oh, you got to go for grants, or you got to know your representative. And Linden must know our representative, Mike Mueller, really well, because they're sure as shit getting a lot of money over there. And so is Fenton Township for their water expansion. I just want to know, what are we even asking for? Are we at the table? And the issue of shovel-ready projects is something I have brought up to this council several times in the past. Do we have plans on the shelf when it rains money from the federal government so that we can get our street fixed and our parks done up nice and everything will be wonderful? To my knowledge, the answer is no. So I even asked the county executive, Dave Coulter, how does a little town like village like Holly, you know, how do we manage to get up and have our shovel-ready projects? And he said, you know, I'm pretty sure we had some county projects where we would pay engineers to help you be ready when those, you know, when those dollars came. You know, I don't ever remember hearing a damn thing about us and Holly having any conversations or doing anything to get ready for these days when they come, and they do come. I'm 67 years old. This is the second time in my lifetime I've seen it rain, and communities who are ready can capitalize on it. So if you're going to be elected to this council again, I would like you to have the village manager doing his job. And I would like you to become creative and start asking and reaching out. We are too damn insulated here in the village. We don't even work with the people that are our next door neighbors. And it is to our detriment. And we cannot afford to keep doing it.
Thank you. Mr. Feeney.
Pat Feeney, 210 Franklin Street. I was wondering if we might be able to get an update on what the cost and where we're at with the water main break that happened in the last week. And the second item is, I'm glad you're having a question and answer thing about the millage, but I would really appreciate it was in the evening. Vast majority of this town works during the day. I mean, and I think we need to have an evening one. And, you know, quite frankly, it's great. I've seen this over the time. you have meetings that are not convenient for the majority of people. I've heard the whines that, well, they don't show up for it. You have to offer it. Doesn't matter. They show up. Only one person shows up. That's your job. And, I mean, no offense to the chiefs, I understand busy days and I understand going into the evening and that. But, a lot of us put in some long days and it's difficult for us to, make time to take out of our work day. That's money out of our pocket. But I might not be here for the whole meeting because I'm going to be off to support our Bronco marching band over in Goodrich in a little bit. My daughter's in the band. But, I'd be happy to hear from you about what kind of cost it was on the water main. Because that's something I think the residents need to have an understanding of. That, some of these, this one didn't sound like anything major. But I'm going to assume, well, I shouldn't say that to the people that it affected. It was major. I get that. But the thing is, I think we need to educate the public to the fact that this is what it cost. This is what it did. This is what it disrupted. So, that's something I think it's very important that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Yes.
One in the back.
Keith Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. All of you are aware of the incident that happened with my wife not too long ago. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but I will say never did I expect what happened would have happened. When we brought our concerns to the village president, legitimate concerns, because none of you know what my wife has been through in her life, what she has endured and had to do. So I want to make that clear. Never did I expect that we would be screamed at by the president, told to go and speak to this person's friend. Instead of passing it down to your president pro tem, which I think you probably should have done, would have been the right thing, I would think. Instead, you told us to go talk to his friend and see if we could work that out. Because you couldn't handle it because you represented this person as an attorney. That still just blows my mind that can happen. I would like to see something happen where that can never happen again here in this council, and I would like to see some kind of sensitivity training or something so that these elected officials understand what's appropriate to engage with for your citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Yes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. Husband stole my thunder a little bit there, but that's all right. I'm going to give you guys, these are copies of the messages that apparently you were not provided by our village attorney. It also took me quite a bit to get a response from him. Now, I had a whole speech written out, and I decided to just go off the cuff because, frankly, we all know what's happened here. I was approached by Rick Powers for a village park cleanup. It was supposed to be very innocuous. We exchanged numbers. I told him who I was right then in text. It's right on the text. You can read them. And within 4 hours, we got to, you're teasing me. You're teasing me. Are you still going to send me pictures of you? I want a picture of you. No woman who has been through any kind of experience with men in power who like to take a little bit of an advantage would have felt comfortable with this conversation. I didn't go to Facebook. I didn't start screaming on public streets. I went to our president, and I tried to bring my concerns to him. And when I came into our president, and I had my best friend, Kristen, and my husband there for support, Mr. Walker was there, and one of the first things that they said to me, interestingly, was that they thought this was another councilman that had done this. Mr. Perkins, you might find that information interesting, because it was later confirmed to me who they thought it was. That is disconcerting to me as a citizen. How should I feel comfortable about that? It was laughed and joked about. Then it was that instead of the president pro tem taking over because you had a conflict of interest, as would be appropriate, it was, well, let's let Mr. Delaney speak to Mr. Powers because they're friends. The whole issue was not treated with the gravity that it should have been. And so by then, instead of it being handled as something simple where you could have just showed some empathy, expressed concern, turned it over to the president pro tem, done a simple investigation, gotten an apology, as Mr. Powers has stepped up and done, by the way, and admitted full responsibility. We had a whole conversation about his cognitive ability to sit. That's why he's not here tonight, I believe. This council has been complicit in covering this up, and covering up what they know Mr. Powers has been going through since the beginning of this year. And now a citizen has suffered for it. I have suffered for it. I am in EMDR therapy again, treating my PTSD, because whether you like it or not, it caused a re-trigger. That's not my fault. I was looking for ice cream, and I was stopped to ask to clean a park. And it devolved into the president of the village screaming at me to wake up and smell the coffee, that this is how the real world works, like I was a little girl who needed to be admonished, when I brought him a valid concern. A lot of the council's candidates that are up for re-election are recycled. They're people that we've seen before. I would like to see different treatment. So either I need these members of council to start standing up and showing us that you actually care about citizens, because the only person who reached out to me with empathy was Mr. Delaney. The only person. I had to go to Mr. Powers. Mr. Kenneman, you met with me, but I reached out to you. None of you responded to the emails that I sent you. This does not leave the public with confidence. It does not leave the public feeling safe. And I am not alone, as you can see behind me. There are women here that do not appreciate that this is the way that this council handled this. There are women's husbands who feel the same way. You should all be ashamed, honestly. And you, Mr. McKinney, you owe me an apology. Whether I'll get it or not, I guess it depends on whether or not you can ethically admit that you do owe me an apology. That's all I wanted to say to this council, but I really hope, Ms. Musgrave, that if you take over the president's seat, that we won't have this same old misogyny that's been continuing, because Mr. Delaney has shown me that he is not standing for that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Is that right, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Amber Kyer, 710 East Maple. I more have a question related to what Joanna just brought up. Do we have anything in our ethics about sexual harassment or about conflicts of interest? Feel free to answer
Sexual
if
harassment.
you'd like.
We'll talk about it later, okay? You don't have a dialogue now.
I think it's important, though, that we know as a
I'm not
community,
arguing.
are these things in black and white?
I'm not arguing with you. We'll have a dialogue of it. We don't have a dialogue about it now. We'll have a discussion about it at tonight's meeting. How's that?
It works for
Any
me.
other comments or questions?
No, those were just my questions, and so you're telling me that both of those will be answered, whether we have something in writing regarding sexual harassment and how we handle that,
Sexual harassment and
conflicts of interest.
It'll be a discussion about it, okay?
Okay.
Any other public comment? No old business. New business, consideration of the approval of action council request to purchase a play structure. Mr. Clausen.
Good evening, council. Back in our budget sessions, we discussed use of the ARPA funds for various projects, and one of those was play structure replacement at Lakeside Park. It took me a while, but I was able to finally get someone to come out and give us a bid. It comes in right about the amount of money that we budgeted from the ARPA funds for replacement at Lakeside Park. There was some stipulations with the ARPA funds that they had to be used in a way that the most use or the most benefit by a majority of the community, some other information like that. So we've got a structure that is going to be pretty much the same footprint as the current structure, but it'll be about 25 years newer, and I believe there's information in your packet that shows, explains that. And it'll be ADA compliant. We'll still use softball chips because the cost of having a rubberized playground is astronomical. So, is there any questions?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The pictures
close representation?
Yes, I asked for red and white for Holly colors, and then the slides or any kind of the plastic structure comes in green, so.
Any of the existing structure going to remain? Or is it
No,
all-
it'll all come out, a majority of it is, in disrepair
Well,
or
I
has
helped
been
put it up.
graffitied up, so, yes. So,
Brian?
yes.
I see on, it says description here, it says does not include supply or installation of additional safety surfacing. What does that?
That's the rubber surface that I talked about. We'll have to bring in some more softball chips, which is a cork material.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So,
okay.
I like it.
Any other questions?
Any further comments or questions?
Is the fencing
Getting
going
up,
to-
getting up easy tonight, Mr. Klein.
So,
No,
what'd you say about fencing?
I was just wondering, is the fencing going to remain and?
No, the fencing's already gone. That was in
My
the-
kids aren't little anymore. So I was down there every day when they were little.
And we just replaced some of the benches and picnic tables up there, or added a few more with some CBG funding, so there's some newer stuff up there already, so.
Cool. Let's go down there.
good.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support it.
Motion and support regarding the action request to purchase a play structure. Any further comments or discussion? Any public comment? Doesn't look like there's any public comment. Roll call vote, please.
Delaney.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Number 2 on tonight's new business agenda, special event Halloween.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So this is an event that normally would be in your consent portion of the agenda. However, because it was submitted after the 60 days, it is in the new business. This is a recurring event that happens each year. It's a very successful and well-attended event by the community. The date of it is Saturday, October the 29th, and as written on the form, it's the 27th annual. And so this is a Parks Commission sponsored event.
I'll make the motion to approve the special event request for Halloween for 2022.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Item 3, special event, Holly Regatta, pirating for a cause. I wore my pink shirt.
Rodney Puddock, 707 Clough Street, AKA the Pink Pirate of Holly. My operational code name in the endeavors that I'll be discussing today is Pink Salmon. But please, if you feel it comfortable, call me R for short. Mr. President, members of council, I'm still relatively new to the community. It's been just shy of a year now, but those that know me within it know that this community is where I've focused 110% of my time and energy since my arrival. The first time I addressed the council formally was as a representative of the American Legion of the Veterans Foreign Wars Post here in our community. This was to incorporate our facilities, the Legion and the VFW halls, into the community's episode plan. Both facilities offer to be at the village's immediate disposal in the event of any emergency in our community where they could be of any use or benefit. You may recall that during this initial interaction, I was referred to by the council as a man of many hats, given some of my antics. It's worth noting that shortly thereafter, our community experienced a substantial hardship, the fire that took place in the heart of our village, and we were ready ahead of time. The second time I addressed the council was as a local veteran that was applying for a dispensary license in our community. My intentions with this were honorable, I assure you. Cannabis was not on my radar, but knowing the revenue potential as being the operating partner of a dispensary in our community, it was my hope to keep as much money in Holly as humanly possible and to do good things with it. Now, I did miss that one by a few votes, unfortunately, but no hard feelings there. Marines do not give up. I'm also here to advise the council that I've found a new hat.
In my efforts to do the aforementioned good things in our community, I partnered with the American Cancer Society's Real Men Wear Pink campaign in Oakland County, representing Holly, Michigan, as its Real Men Wear Pink ambassador in the program. I'm on the hook to raise a minimum of $2,500 here, guys. Now, if I can't make this happen, and I inexplicably go missing, I'll probably be at an off-track betting establishment somewhere trying to make up the difference. I would like to state for the record, though, that I did see the driver of the big pink bus that hit me, and I'd like to make a police report after the meeting. Chief Narsh, as a former Real Men Wear Pink ambassador of Lake Orion, I was quite flattered by the nomination to represent Holly. Thank you, sir. It's an honorable cause, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. We've given you the operational codename Black Triggerfish. It seemed fitting. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with the campaign, Real Men Wear Pink ambassadors raise awareness and funds for the fight against breast cancer, which affects 1 in every 8 women, and all those that love them. Add those numbers up, and they're staggering. There aren't many left untouched. We use the power of pink to effectuate change and positive change in those numbers. Given the 2 local veteran service organizations that I'm also directly affiliated with, and the way that veterans stick together, I've enlisted the help of Mi Familia in these endeavors. We also have one amongst your ranks, operational codename Anchovy. And another that was to be in the audience today, operational codename The Herring. Shout out also to one that's watching from home at the moment, operational codename Seahorse. We have 2 events planned for the community at the moment, one of which is Bowling for Boobs, sponsored by Holly Lanes, October 28th, which we'll be selling tickets for very soon. Shout out to the owner of Holly Lanes, Brian, my spirit animal, should you be watching at home. After the fact, you're a beautiful man, sir. Thank you for the assist. We've titled our other event, which is before the council, requires approval, and it's rather short notice, but it's for a good cause. So I want to raise awareness. We also want to play pirate and have a boat race in the process on land. The streets of Holly, to be exact, from this very building, actually, to the American Legion. Some would call it a parade, but in truth, it's a race for a cure. We've titled the event the inaugural Holly Regatta, Pirating for a Cause, sponsored by Skipperbuds, and thus the regalia you see before you today. We're also hoping to make this an annual event here in Holly in conjunction with our community's other endeavors to raise awareness for breast cancer in the month of October. We figure, why not level up? Immediately following the event, we'll be hosting a community gathering at the American Legion where we'll be celebrating those in our community that have fought the battle, those that have been directly affected by it, and those that want to help us find a cure. All are welcome. This event graciously sponsored by Steve Hernandez, a resident of Holly and the CEO of the North Group. The success of the Real Men Wear Pink campaign depends on the creativity and commitment of its ambassadors. It's known for being a rather fun and playful campaign, and I'm a military man, so I'm big on tradition. Again, we'd like to turn this into a yearly event. It's our inaugural year participating as a community in the Real Men Wear Pink campaign, and you have to start somewhere. We would like to start by playing pirate. We figure Halloween is right around the corner, and this community knows how to come together in style. And I have to be honest here, I grew up in Las Vegas, and I've got to say I'm impressed. Holly is amazing, and I'm glad I found it. To cut to the chase, what this event would detail is a small armada of boats departing from the Carl Richter Center to our community's American Legion, decorated with some pink and captained by pirates. Costumes are not required, nor are decorations, but we'd love to see them. This will be a naval operation. Well, actually, it's a bit above the navel, actually. This one is for everyone. It's a family-friendly event with a minimum donation of $25 to the American Cancer Society, and a personal boat or watercraft on a trailer, and a pirate crew to man your ship. You're in. This will not be a slow-moving parade, and participants will not be on foot. We expect minimal impact on traffic and a positive effect on community businesses in the area. Those that would like to help us effectuate positive change can reach out to us at specialops@vfw5587.org if they'd like to get involved. Please, let us play pirate, and let me assure you, these pirates are not in it for the booty. We're in it for breasts and to save lives.
Rodney, you could sell just about anything, dude.
Ketchup popsicles. Look like gloves.
So, Mr. President, members of council, what I ask of you now is to be the bra and help us support breasts and find a cure. I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Any questions of our guests?
Crack me up.
I have a question. You last time I saw you, I went to breakfast at the American Legion. You were wearing an orb. You were an orb
It was a large pink inflatable suit, yes.
Yeah.
The whole deal is get attention, raise awareness, and hopefully, raise funds to find that.
I still recognize you in the pirate costume. You couldn't get it through the door, you're right. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the Holly Regatta Pirating for a Cause.
I'll second.
As an annual event.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Any public comment?
Who supported that?
Take your pick.
Jimmy?
1, 2, 3.
Everyone?
Yep. Any public comment on the Holly Regatta? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Delaney.
Arg. Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
McKenney.
Yes, motion carried. Next item, special event, Dickens Parade and tree lighting. Mr. Kinnaman, are you speaking to us? Guess not.
After that, what can I say?
Big
Our
shoes to fill there.
parade will not be as pink.
So actually, items 4 and 5
Oh.
are both related in the fact that they're Dickens Festival related. If council wanted, you could tie bar these together, most likely.
Why don't we do that? Go ahead.
And so the Dickens Festival, as you know, is an annual festival. In fact, the oldest operating continuous Dickens Festival in the country. And so, Holly, we're very well known for that. This, again, is in your new business because it was submitted after or not within the 60-day prior time limit. In fact, it was submitted last Thursday, Mr. Kinnaman. But
Wednesday. Wednesday.
Yeah,
Last
Wednesday.
week.
But this is kind of a no-brainer type of event. This is a great event for the community. We don't anticipate any problems. The date of the parade is Saturday, November the 26th, from 6 to 9, and the dates of the Dickens Festival itself is the 26th, 27th of November, and then the weekends of December 3rd and 4th, and then 10 and 11. And so if you have any specific questions, I'm sure Mr. Kinnaman will be happy to answer them, but those are the events.
This is year number 49 for the Dickens Festival.
Wow. I'll make the motion that we approve these two special events for the Dickens Parade and tree lighting on November 26th, and also the Dickens Festival on the 26th and 27th of November, 3rd and 4th, and 10th and 11th of December, 2022.
I'll support it.
Motion and support with regard to items 4 and 5 on the, under new business. Any further comment, council members? Any public comment regarding items 4 and 5 on, under new business?
John has a question or a comment.
Mr. Love, items 4 and 5 on the agenda.
The Dickens Festival is a great tradition for the town here. It's been affected by the fire, of course. But there's another part of this is that the involvement of the schools in this process. And I don't know what's been done to get the schools involved in it in some way. So that's what my concern is. The other thing is that they also passed out a grade sheet on the performance of the schools. And it was pretty shocking because like 8th grade reading.
The issue that we're discussing is the special event.
I know.
Dickens Parade and tree lighting and special event Dickens Festival.
Okay, well, they get the schools involved. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason is they have problems even reading.
Any further public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Weinbrenner.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
McKenney.
Yes, motion carried. We have reports. Mr. Walker, does the village have a sexual harassment policy?
We do.
And
It is part of the personnel manual.
that has to do with our employees.
Yes, which includes council.
Council members?
Yes.
Okay. And it is, that manual is online, isn't it?
It is not online electronically. We do have it in the office.
Okay. So
For review.
Okay.
Certainly.
Mr. Gildner, the issue of conflict of interest is not specific to Holly. It's generic, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the village having a specific conflict of interest policy. I know the issue directed at you, and it certainly involves your role as an attorney, and there's lots and lots of rules governing attorneys and conflicts of interest. But as a council member, there are implicit rules. I mean, you sit as fiduciaries when you're an elected official. Fiduciary meaning you have to act in the best interest of the municipality that you represent and not in self-interest. And so that draws in conflict of interest. If you are acting in your betterment of yourself or to advance your own interest over and above those of the villages, that would be a conflict of interest. Is that stated out in a policy? Not per se, but as I said, it's implied by law. You are a fiduciary, and therefore you bring with it those duties to avoid conflicts of interest.
And typically when there's a conflict of interest, it's disclosed, as it was in this case, disclosed, and then you don't participate any further.
That's right. That's exactly the process. So Robert's Rules, which kicks in the absence of any other rule, when it talks about conflicts of interest, the idea being you're supposed to identify it, recognize it, identify it, and then abstain from any consideration on that issue.
And when somebody recuses himself, you proceed with whoever can participate in the process.
Right.
There's no crime, there's no penalty, there's no civil action because somebody declared that they had a conflict of interest.
No, it just means that that member who has the conflict is out of the process, out of the decision-making process. Doesn't mean that the complaint or the issue dies on the vine. It just means it's not an issue for that particular member to deal with. It moves on in whatever form or fashion it needs to move on.
Council have any comments with respect to either our discussion here of the sexual harassment policy or the conflict of interest?
I have a question for Mr. Gildner, if I may.
It's up to him whether he can answer it.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Gildner, you had mentioned that Holly has no provisions in place regarding conflicts of interest. I think you mean, limiting what, who may run for and serve in office as a member of council. Was that kind of where you were going?
No,
with that was
no. I don't have your rules of ethics in front of me. My recollection is that there's nothing in there specifically dealing with conflict of interest. I may be wrong. But no, my description was not just in running for office, but someone may be eligible to sit on council. An issue may pop up once they're there, and the conflict of interest provisions follow. And that member, if they have a conflict, they're supposed to identify it, state it, abstain from any further participation. So it not only goes to sitting, it's deciding.
Sure. So what you were saying then was we don't have any explicit policy in our code of ordinances, for example, that deal with how we proceed in a case such as this, where a sitting member of council or village president or whomever has a conflict of interest.
to the best of my recollection. I said I don't have the policy in
no,
front
that's
of me.
fair
So
enough,
To the
yeah.
best of my
Yeah.
recollection, that's my position.
Ryan, is there something that you're thinking of that would be other than, you disclose it, the council member disclose it, and then you say, you said abstain, or you recuse yourself? Is there something beyond that?
The only thing I could think beyond that would be, as Ms. Barnes suggested, that there's a certain kind of chain of command, right? You know, if it's not appropriate for the village president to handle that situation, then perhaps the president pro tem would be the next reasonable person, that sort of thing.
I don't know why I was invited to the meeting. Anyone could have been invited to the meeting.
There's no
But it was
reason to get defensive.
What? Can I say what I want without? Yeah, I'm not getting defensive. I'm reporting. I was invited to the meeting the morning of the meeting. So, you know, I don't know why I was there. I could have been any member of council that was there. So, it's just that there is a routine with conflict of interest, disclosure, and if it's a vote, you abstain, or you recuse yourself. And then it stops at that point. You don't participate anymore, and you go through the vote.
Well, and I would just add, you know, with regard to, you know, what is the village's policy, as far as, you know, if a resident comes with a complaint of sexual harassment by a member of council or of staff, there must be a policy. We've been assured that we have a policy. We still haven't established, even in the broadest possible strokes, what that policy is. We're told that it's available, but not anywhere that can be easily accessed by a resident.
You didn't know that you weren't at the meeting. Let me interrupt. You weren't at the meeting, and they asked to have the councilman removed. At that point, there was nothing we could do, because we can't remove a council member. The governor can remove a council member, but we can't remove a council member. It didn't go forward from there.
Can I just interject one thing, perhaps? And only because I was a third party on that Zoom meeting. I was third, fourth, fifth party, depending on how you're counting. There were a few people on there. But upon the president removing himself from that discussion or conversation or meeting because of the conflict that he disclosed, the statement was made immediately that it would be referred to the village attorney for investigation. And that is in fact what did happen. And so that is consistent with the policy. So the policy says that if a complaint is received, it will be investigated. It was investigated. And so there was that chain of command. In absence of the president pro tem, that responsibility fell on me as the village manager. And so the very next morning, I did contact Mr. Gildner, and he commenced with his investigation. So if that just clarifies things, that there is a procedure in place, it was followed, it was investigated immediately.
And the issue of removal of Councilman Powers was rendered moot with the investigation. No one pursued a removal. When they met with Mr. Powers, they removed their request, or they met with council, Mr. Gildner. They didn't want to have Mr. Powers removed. The issue was rendered moot. But it goes on. It has a life. It goes on. Any further comments or questions, council members? And did you want to follow up?
Yes, I just want to follow up.
Can you come up and once again rejoin us?
I'd love to. I feel like the conflict of interest began when you sat on this council as a president and did not reveal your conflict of interest with Mr. Powers. That's where my understanding of conflict of interest would lie. You knew you had a loyalty to him that none of the rest of us knew about.
Well, I disagree.
And I
disagree.
Tom has done things for me in the past as well as an attorney. So it's not, he's a good local attorney. That's what we do.
Which is great, but when that supersedes his responsibility to us as citizens is when it becomes
an issue to, but it did.
Amber, it happens all the time. People have.
Yes, you're right. Sexual harassment in this community
No,
does happen
I'm
all the
talking about
time.
conflict of interest.
And we keep it under lock and key in
No.
closed sessions, and we allow predators out into our community to protect our own, is what this seems like to
This
me.
message right here.
I-
It's not, this is a very simple, it can be construed any way you wish, but it says, I want a picture of you. It doesn't say, send me a nude picture, it doesn't, I've got, here's the text. right
If I say, meet me out at the flagpole, you know what that means without me telling you I'm gonna
Amber-
fight you, right?
Amber, I'd like
Come on.
to redirect our discussion now to answering your questions regarding sexual harassment and conflict of interest. Is there any further information you'd like?
Yes, what are the punishments or statutes that we have when we do find that somebody has sexually harassed one of our citizens? Are there repercussions?
There certainly are repercussions in the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
If you'd
Gilligan?
like, first of all, the complaint was not about sexual harassment.
No,
At
it
least,
wasn't.
It's been portrayed that way. Immediately afterwards, that was the reaction. But by the time they met with me just a few days later, that was not the complaint at all. Now, are there repercussions? Of course there are. There's civil remedies. If it crosses a certain line, there could even be a criminal liability. But let's assume the worst happened. Let's assume that there was a sexual assault committed by a sitting council member. I'm just throwing out a wild hypothetical. There was nothing close to that was complained about here. Under the law, there is nothing that any member of council can do individually or as a group to remove that member. By law, there's nothing that you can do. The only removal power lies with the governor, and I don't know of a single instance where a governor in recent memory has exercised that authority. That process by statute requires that there be due process. And the individual council member that we're speaking of is off council in November. So again, if the governor really wanted to just dive into this and remove that member, the process would still be going on after that member was off of council. Again, those are things that I think bear on this question.
Amber, have we fleshed out more information for you?
I think a little bit, but I'm still uncomfortable with the fact that you have pertinent information that's not given to the citizens.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to leave you with that discomfort because I have conflicts of interest. I sit on a board of directors. The bank was nominated as a deposit. I recused myself. I abstained. I have those conflicts of interest. So does the insurance man in town who sells insurance to somebody. So it arises. It arises commonly, and it's addressed as we've described it here, almost without exception. You don't vote. You recuse yourself. The process continues. I don't think I can say anything more. I'm repeating myself. So
I'll have to accept your answer.
I'll meet you at the coffee shop.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Any more comments or questions from council on this matter? Let's migrate to the reports. Village manager.
So I have a written report that's in your council packet for your review. There are just a couple of things that I want to talk about in addition to that report. One of them has to do with a social media report over the weekend about 56,000 gallons of water being used. And there were a lot of comments from the community, and that's why I thought it appropriate that I address those tonight. I did address that on social media for those who do not tune into a council meeting, but just to provide that information. So there was, in fact, a resident that did register 56,000 gallons of usage of water. That is a huge amount of water. In this particular case, the house is equipped with one of our newer style water meters, which allows for us to remotely access the reads on that meter. And it is so specific that we can access them for the last 45 days and track them hour by hour for the usage. So when we did that, we went backwards, and 45 days takes us into the last part of August. And what we did find was that there was in excess of 200 gallons of water passing through that meter every hour for 24 hours a day for several days. And so if you do the math on that, it doesn't take a lot of days, actually, to get to 56,000 gallons. Now, mysteriously, the water usage stopped on September the 5th at 1 p.m. And we know that because of the smart meter, which provided us that information. And so Utilities Director Clausen contacted the persons at that residence and asked them if they did something on that date that would have stopped the usage of the water. And they couldn't recall. So that is the story. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was that amount of water passing through that meter. Now, I mean, we can't just waive the fee because this is an enterprise fund. And so every customer, every person sitting at the council table, every person in the audience that is a Holly Water customer, every person in the township which is connected to our water system, they are all Village of Holly water customers. Each one of the customers, including you pay your bill for your water that you use. If we were to waive the money that is associated with this 56,000 gallons, it doesn't just go away. What that means is that money or money owing would be split up equally to every water customer that's connected to the system. So everybody else would be paying that bill because this is not a income water system. So people think, oh, the village is getting rich off selling water to the community. In fact, that couldn't be farthest from the truth. Your water rates are set every single year they're examined. It's based on the amount of usage and water loss, and that is split up then into the payment for what a gallon of water costs or sewer treatment costs, and it's paid equally. So as we continue to have communications with these residents, we will work with them the best that we can. It is not uncommon for us to set up payment agreements for persons who have large amounts of water or have unfortunate incidents like this. And it is unfortunate. We don't want anybody to have that kind of water loss. I mean, not only is it unfortunate for them, but it in essence sent 56,000 gallons of water back through the water treatment plant that we ended up having to treat and take time and use chemicals and wear and tear on the equipment and the whole thing. But I just wanted to relay that to council because it was a large issue over the weekend. There was well over 100 comments on social media, as well as some other questions that we received in person. So that is the situation. It is resolved in the fact that we are certain that that water usage took place. And we will work the best we can with the residents to assist them in becoming current and making sure that that cost from that incident is not passed on to everybody in general, because quite frankly, that just wouldn't be fair if you had to pay for somebody else's water. So that's where we're at. We are looking at some ways to make the system more efficient so that we'll get this reporting a little quicker than we did. So that's things to come in the future, but we are working on this. We want to make it better for everybody, but it's just an unfortunate situation. Anybody have any questions regarding that incident in general?
I would just like to comment on what my boss actually experienced at our business. We had the same issue with a bad toilet. DPW came out and told us. As soon as we shut that toilet off, the bill went down. You're looking at a 3-inch pipe going through the toilet out into the water system. That is a huge size for water to be pouring through. And if it's continuously going all day, all day, all day, yes, it's going to increase the charges for the water bill.
Certainly. So it takes less than 2 weeks at that rate in order to surpass 50,000 gallons. And think of it this way, too. So, I mean, toilets really are the worst offender.
Yeah, they are.
As our water department goes on these service calls with people. But that amount of water, 200 gallons an hour, really is 3.3 gallons a minute, which really is nothing more than an outside spigot that is turned on. It's nothing more than a water in a wash tub that is turned on, you know, and it runs continuously. So you get 10 to 12 days, 200 gallons an hour, you're going to be at 50,000 gallons plus. Okay, the next issue that I wanted to talk about, and again, this is just for clarification. That was not my intention tonight to talk clarifications, but I think it's necessary. At the Planning Commission meeting of September the 28th of this year, and Mr. Clark has left, which is unfortunate because I'll pass this information on to him personally, but he was talking during Planning Commissioner comments, because he serves on that board, about the Police Fire Special Assessment Ballot Initiative that's coming up in November. And he spoke out against it, and certainly that's his right. One of the facts that he talked about, and is in permanent record of the Planning Commission, is he made a statement that our neighbors in Springfield Township have so much more land than we do, but only pay half as much for police service. And so I called the very next day and spoke with the township supervisor in Springfield Township, and she subsequently sent me an email. And in Springfield Township, they have 9 deputies that they contract for. They have 1 detective and 1 command officer, so 11 full-time employees. They pay additional cost of $40,000 annually for dispatch, and their total cost for police service is $1,847,064. Well, our budgeted amount this year, council approved budget for fiscal year 22-23, is just a little over $1.6 million. So this same amount of police officers that Springfield Township has, that is the exact number that I would recommend to council. If you were to say, we want to contract out for police services, I would tell you, this is the exact number of full-time police officers you need, and that's going to put you on the low end of actually what's required. But it's probably pretty close to what we have now, because we have, including the chief, 9 full-time officers, but we have a cadre of part-time officers, and then we have police reserve officers that work. And if you back out the $414,000 that we pay for retirement, which, by the way, those are the employees that are already retired, as well as some costs for those on, but you would still have that $414,000 on top of the $1.8 million that Springfield Township pays if we were to do the comparable, and so you're talking $2.2 million. And so, you know, it's just inaccurate or incomplete information, and I don't like it when it goes out in a public forum, because once it's out there, it's out there. But that information was not accurate, and the real truth is, if you back the 414 out of our cost, our police service is 1.2 million, just a little over that. And so that's the real fact on that. Questions on that before I move on to number 3? I'm kind of on a roll, so.
Shut him off.
All right, so dealing in the statement of inaccuracies. So, as you know, the village just finished a road project. In fact, it's not 100% completed, of North Saginaw, in excess of $2 million, which involved state and federal grants that was administered through the MDOT. And so we know that we have that project that we have worked on. We also work every year with Oakland County on tri-party projects, which you're familiar with. and which we hope we'll be working with. We've been in negotiations or discussion with the Road Commission regarding the expansion and improvement of the Grange Hall and North Holly intersection. And so that will be another partnership program that should be going to the Planning Commission fairly soon. And we look for some movement in that area. And then sidewalks. So we have a sidewalk replacement program. We are as active as we can be with the amount of manpower and the availability of contractors to do sidewalks. And so we have done repairs. We do repairs annually. During the COVID period, was there a slowdown on that? Yes. There was a slowdown in everything. The world seemed to come to a stop. But we are cognizant that we want to be a walkable community. We want the best walkable community that we can get. I mean, and so we're hoping to budget significant amounts next year into the sidewalks program. There are active discussions with staff. And so, you know, we work on that. But we do road projects. We have great partners at the state and at the county level, and we do sidewalk replacements. Any questions on any of that?
So what would it take for us to do road projects like they're doing in Fenton?
Yeah, actually, it would take just exactly what they did, a road millage. And so, you know, and their DDA pays a portion of their road fundings in their DDA district, but there's a huge difference between the capture of a Fenton DDA and the Holly DDA. The Holly DDA, we capture roughly $150,000. And I would say they're probably triple that in Fenton. So we do have those projects. And remember, we did bid out road repair on South Broad Street, received no bids because the job was too small. But at the time, that was what we could afford, and applying some additional state funds with that. We have just completed road coring on College Street to see what the condition of that asphalt is there, because we know College Street is one of our worst streets to go along with North Street and Sherman and South Broad. And so we are looking at those projects for the spring. But unless we can tie College Street, perhaps to South Broad, maybe a little bit to North Street, we'll be lucky to get bids on that again. But we are working on it, and we do have a program.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Walker? Thank you very much, Mr. Walker, for that clarification. Mr. Gildner.
So earlier this year, as all of you know, you had adopted an ordinance on adult use marijuana and your scoring system. That produced two lawsuits. One filed by the Studleys. That was filed first and early, where they complained about the ordinance and how it was prepared and how it operated. They went to court right away. They were asking for an injunction, an order from the court, stopping you from progressing with even considering applications. The court denied that request. The case continued just a few weeks ago. They withdrew their case. It's dismissed. So that's gone. There was a second case filed by Greenstones. Greenstones was one of the applicants that applied. They also are attacking the entire ordinance and the way that it has been handled. We had a hearing last week at their request. They were asking the court for what's called an order of mandamus, similar to an injunctive order, asking that that certain things happen under the ordinance that it's just inconsistent with what the ordinance that all of you adopted, quite frankly. The court denied that request. The case continues, but I honestly think that Greenstone simply doesn't understand how that ordinance works. in reality. And so time will tell whether, what happens with that suit. But I wanted you to know that that's where we stand. You started off with 2, you're down to 1, and I think that 1 is based upon a fundamental misunderstanding. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Gildner? Thank you, Mr. Gildner. Good news on the 1, and more news to come, I'm sure. Ms. Bigger?
Nothing really to add to my written report. I would like to remind everybody that the council meeting for November has been moved to November 22nd. Yes? Is it?
Yes.
Boards and commissions, updates and council comments. Ryan Scheel.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. Sorry I missed the last couple of meetings. The meeting for Haya was this last Thursday. The only thing that I have is the last 14 years, the Haya has not received any funds from the general fund from the village. And the thing that kind of strikes me is that I have the statistics here from the Oakland County Youth Assistance statistical report, and the and 11 of them come from our jurisdiction, meaning the Village of Holly, meaning that the discipline and whatnot. And a lot of them are school incorrigibility to school disturbances, stuff like that. And I'd like to, and the reason why I bring up the 14 years from the general fund is to help Haya to prevent them to maybe lower this number from 11 down to almost nil, to prevent them to turning into something worse down the road, to become, not necessarily juvenile delinquents, but to turn into better model citizens that we can prevent something down the road. So, at any rate, that's my report for council, and at any rate, that's it. Thank you, council.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Yes.
There's a new director here, correct?
Yes, new, not director, but new...
Counselor or whatever.
Yeah, counselor, I forget her name right off the top of my head, but she's relatively new here, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Mr. Delaney.
The Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet in October. There were no agenda items. Other than that, I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Mr. Weinbrenner, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Feel younger today already.
I think you're younger than me anyway. You're not going to catch up. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Have enough.
Okay. Mr. Perkins.
Yep, HTC hasn't met. Happy birthday to my brother Buster.
Thank you.
Mr. Kinnaman.
Planning Commission met this month and reviewed and approved the plans for Cloud Cannabis. One of our licenses that we granted that will be in the old dealership, the Pontiac dealership. You will see some very nice things happen to that location. The drawings look very good, and so they should begin work anytime. We're excited for Dickens Festival coming this time. As I said, it's year number 49, and we have talked and reviewed and looked at how, with the devastation that happened downtown, to place our festival in the right places and the right ways, and we hope that it brings some life to our downtown, to the alley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinnaman. Ms. Musgrave?
Personnel and finance have not met, but I would ask that everyone join me in singing happy birthday to Buster.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me turn my microphone off.
Come on, everyone.
Start us off, Deb.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Buster. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you.
I think we should go caroling. I think we should go caroling.
Okay, let's do it.
Nothing further, Ms. Musgrave?
No,
Not
nothing
another-
further.
Not another request or anything?
No, just that.
We got you, Buster.
It's Buster's special day.
I think that this event that was discussed in detail tonight, I don't want to belabor it, but I think it arises from a couple of misunderstandings. Having been said, I don't agree with the characterizations of the meeting. I did raise my voice, I will admit to that. I don't agree with the characterizations of how those events transpired that were heard tonight. So there's another side of the story. I think that's all I have to say. If there's no objection, meeting's adjourned.